And good evening, everybody. I'm Ann Vandersteel, and this is Steel News Live tonight, doing a little bit different show for you. It's necessary right now because we have so many good congressional candidates, governor candidates that are running right now. We've got primaries. In fact, Texas is next week, and you've been hearing me talk about Doc Pete Chambers a lot because there seems to be a little bit of an upset brewing in Texas. Apparently, the Texans are waking up. So tonight we're going to be having a conversation with Ryan Zink. He's a Republican candidate running for the U.S. House of Representatives in Texas' 19th Congressional District. And Ryan is focusing his campaign on what he calls returning power to communities, defending constitutional liberties, bolstering border security, and addressing key issues that are facing West Texans. We're going to look at all of his priorities, what motivates him to run, and what he wants voters to know before the March primary, which is next week. And if you didn't know this or you were living under a rock, you would also know that Ryan was also a J6 defendant. But that story has been told. He recently did a blockbuster interview on Tucker Carlson, and it's on his website. We'll get to that in a minute. But I want to bring in Ryan Zink. Ryan, it is great to see you. I'm glad that you're able to join me tonight, and I'm glad to be able to do a little bit of a different format because I've been going live in the afternoon as of late. And it's nice to get back in the saddle a little bit later in the evening. So congrats on throwing your hat in the ring. This is a Viper pit you're in.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ann, for having me on. I really appreciate you letting me come and speak.
Oh, of course. Of course. Listen, I've known your dad for quite a long time and followed your story. And man, your family has been through a lot, but it has never seemed to deter either of you or your dad or anybody in your family, for that matter, who gets behind you, because running for Congress is not for the faint or the weak of heart. This is for people who've got grit, determination, and have decided, I mean, at this stage of the game, why would you ever want to get into politics unless you just don't want to be a politician? You want to finally restore the republic and be a public servant or a servant leader. So tell me a little bit about your decision to do this.
Well, I mean, it wasn't an easy one, but as a January 6th defendant, now that I finally, had my complete case dismissed in its entirety and gotten a presidential pardon, there was nobody who stood up for me during that time. There were only two people across the entire United States that wrote a letter for me: the current Speaker of the House in Texas, Dustin Burrows, and former Congressman George Santos were the only two that, wrote a letter for me. And I wanted to make sure that I could protect West Texas values from Austin and Washington, D.C. values. I think that it's very critical to have representation, biblical representation in Washington, D.C. to fight such an enormous giant.
Well, I agree with you on that, but I have to say, watching the State of the Union last night, I saw a house divided. I see a nation divided. And I was really quite repulsed by the lack of enthusiasm for just the most basic and fundamental of things. I mean, President Trump trying to bring in, or bringing in the gold medal winners, right? And you couldn't even get a standing ovation for that. At what point do we not care about our fellow human beings anymore? It doesn't matter politics. Hockey isn't politics.
Yeah, I think it's disgusting. I've been a lifelong Dallas Stars fan, and as much as I hate to see, Connor Hellebuyck getting, some recognition up on there, I could not be prouder of our guys for bringing home the gold. And I think that it's disgusting that it wasn't just about hockey. The left didn't even stand up for a little girl who had made it through an accident from an illegal immigrant. And
Right.
that's a disgusting sight to see. We've got to start working together across both sides of the aisle, but we cannot forsake our Christian values in doing so.
No, and in your state, you're a border state. I watched, working with Michael Yon and Operation Burning Edge, what was going on the Texas border, especially down the Rio Grande Valley. It was really, it was a sad sight to see Customs and Border Protection being told they have to facilitate the trafficking of people into our country illegally. They were literally ignoring Article 4, Section 4, as well as Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3. That state, your state, all governors could have sent those illegals home. They had the right to defend their state from a foreign invasion. It just wasn't happening. And now your state has been fully invaded. You've got illegal alien colonies like Colony Ridge outside Houston, Texas. You've also got, forward operating bases under the cover of mosques and Sharia law all over your state. Your state has been invaded. What is your position on that? And do you intend to do anything about it?
Well, so my position with Sharia law is, and just basically for my entire campaign, is that there's three books that govern this land: the Bible, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. And Islam goes completely against all three of those. You cannot have Sharia law enacted into a community because the number one thing that it promotes is slavery with women. And I'm very against that. We have to protect our women, not just from slavery and Sharia law, but also in their sports and their bathrooms and their changing rooms and everything else from this, mental disorder that's, spread across our country. But when it comes down to, the border and the invasion, I'm a little different than most candidates. I think that we should have a 50-50-50 law. Every 50 yards, there's a 50 caliber machine gun on a 50-foot tower to protect our border, and actually set a hard line on who and what is coming in this country. Because it's not that we hate people that are on the outside of that fence. It's just that we love the ones that are on the inside because those are Americans. And we've got to get control of that, because if we don't, it's going to keep costing us just like it is now. We're $40 trillion nearly in debt. We're leveraging $1 trillion just to offset the interest of what we're paying for just throughout the year. And we have to leave something for our children, and 20 to 30 million people who are living on welfare and straining the American, the financial system that we have going right now, that doesn't benefit anybody. So I think it's time to shut it, keep the border shut down, get all the illegal immigrants out, and then we can work with our allies at some point down the road, getting people in who want to work, who want to, assimilate to our country, to our values, instead of, bringing in people that hate us, but don't want to go back to their country.
Exactly. And unfortunately, we're now left picking up the pieces. Tom Homan has got one hell of a job, and he's trying to just get the worst of the worst out. The murderers, the gangs, the gangsters, and the rapists, get them out of our country.
Yes.
And again, we're sending more money overseas than we are towards really putting, the grease we need behind and the tools for our men and women who are out there doing this incredibly dangerous job. So it's really just an unbelievable situation that we find ourselves in, but yet one that was totally predictable. I want to take you back a little bit to your roots. How has your life in West Texas shaped your political perspective and the priorities that you have?
Well, I'm down here in the Bible Belt, so Jesus is king around here, and so is cotton, and we have a very, very big center of faith-based believers, and so I do consider myself to be lucky where I'm at. But the way that it shaped me is that this is the food, fiber, and fuel region, of America, and we got a lot of hard workers here, a lot of hard workers. The problem is that we don't have enough here in order to sustain us because of all this, fraudulent spending and everything else that's going on. We have bills that need to be put forward and completely redone, like the botched farm bill, that 76% of those benefits went towards SNAP. And that's a huge issue to me, because I would much rather put the money back in small farms' hands, and help out the people that are surrounding us, instead of bailing out major ag or, other food industries, like welfare. That's where it's really going to count. And I think the way that, District 19 has shaped me, I live just outside of Lubbock in Wolford, Texas. It's beautiful out here. I get to see, there's no saying that you can watch your dog run away for 2 weeks here because of how flat it is. But that's beautiful. And we love it. I couldn't be happier with where I'm at. On. I have the support of a beautiful wife and a great community, and I just love this. I love this West Texas area. It just gets me so much.
So let's talk about border security, because border security in your state, you've got the biggest border of a state, and that's where I saw mass infiltration. President Trump has shut the border down now, but what more can we do? Yes. And what will you be promoting and pushing while you're representing West Texas?
Well, I think one of the things that I want to promote the most is, I have a dear friend. His name's Michael Moore, and some of you may know his story with his sister Rachel being murdered, and her and her body dumped just outside of Washington D.C. by an illegal immigrant. And so my border policies is that we need to strengthen up ICE. I'm an ICE supporter. I believe that, law and order is the only way that we're going to maintain, the strength in our country, because every single one of these people that allowed the border to go into a complete disaster, like Alejandro Mayorkas, I'll mention him up on the website. It's not just about the people that are coming across the borders. It's what is coming across itself. Like at the bottom of, that screen down there, you can see that there's IEDs, there's guns, there were rocket launchers, there were all kinds of things that were coming in that could cause mass destruction in our everyday communities. And Lubbock, Texas is a trafficking hub for sex trafficking. That includes women and children. So is, a couple of other places that people have to pass through here, like Abilene and Midland, Texas, which is just outside of the, the reach of my district. And we've got to get control of this, because this is, sex trafficking is one of the worst things. It's really hard to state anything that's worse than somebody being trafficked for these sickos, to do what they're doing with them. And it's not something that I'm for. I believe the Epstein files, there needs to be some action here pretty quick. I'd love to see some rest on that. But we have a choice to make. It's either seal up the border, get everything right, give ICE and the Border Patrol the protections and the funding that they need, where the left has previously tried to strip everything away. We have to protect this country. We have to protect the people who are in it, and we have to stop trafficking of any kind going across, whether it's sex, people, or drugs.
I've got a question here from Fire Investing. They want to know if you've taken any. Would you take? Because you're not in Congress. They're asking, does he take APAC money? Well, he's not in Congress yet, so he can't. But if you were in Congress, would you take APAC money? And they want to know, who are your donors? Just so we're clear, Fire Investing, this gentleman is not in Congress yet. He's running, so there is no APAC money for him to take.
Well, Fire, first things first, I have not taken money from any PAC whatsoever. If people want to donate to me, it's because they believe in me. And I've held true on that campaign promise. I've made my finances available to anybody who's willing to ask. I've taken donations from across the country from patriots, much like yourself. The other thing, too, all the APAC money and everything else is keeping our money in the United States is very important to me. I don't care what country it is. We shouldn't be sending millions and billions of dollars across it. America first means Americans first, and that means lowering our debt. So the answer to your question is no, I haven't taken any, and will I? No.
Great. Good question. Okay. I want to move on here because you've got some other things on the agenda, and everybody's talking about AI. It has a lot of energy requirements. We have a big battle going on here in my backyard, and it looks like right now we push back on some big AI coming in that's going to impact our water, our resources, our energy costs. We're hearing about people's energy costs. So you have on your website, you have a big position on energy, oil, and gas. So let's start with just energy in general, and let's break it down from there, and then we'll move into AI.
Absolutely. So I stand completely firm with President Trump on his energy independence platform. West Texas, it does run on oil and gas, and President Trump's policies have made us a global energy powerhouse. I'm going to defend that against all these different radical agendas that ensure American energy independence. Drill, baby, drill, I think is my number one agenda that we have, because how else are we supposed to be able to shut down this large amount of deficit that we have in our budget? $40 trillion. Oil, if we work with our allies, I think that we should be able to, to start selling some of our oil and gas products, and that should open up a little bit more flexibility inside of our funding. But we have to stay dominant. We have to stay dominant. American energy independence, I feel like, is one of the only ways that we're ever going to do anything with this country. It's a national security issue in my eyes.
It totally is a national security issue. So now let's talk about AI, because President Trump's talking about making us the AI capital of the world, along with Bitcoin and other things. And, these all take valuable energy resources. We're watching people's electric bills. I see it all the time on Instagram and X and everywhere. People are complaining about their energy bills that have, doubled, tripled, quadrupled. I mean, people that were used to paying $200 a month, paying $1,000. That's like, what? And nothing for them changed. Why are they having to subsidize this? How do we avoid that in Texas?
Well, I think one of the things that we can do in our region is we have what's called flare gas. It's a waste gas that comes out of the production of oil and gas. And so I think that we could offset some of these costs in our district by putting, two different factors on this. So we can put a generator on there that generates electricity that burns this flare gas. And I think that we could tie that into the grid, and that should help offset some of the energy costs across the district. But it's not just that, it's AI as well. We're looking at bringing all these AI data centers in. There's one going up in Afton, Texas. There's another one in Amarillo, and they're looking at putting 5 in Midland, Texas. Texas doesn't have the water for this. See, and this is the biggest problem. So, they say, oh, we're going to use a closed loop system, and, this energy is not going to be here. But we've heard all of these promises before. And it doesn't really seem to me like there's a plan for anything else except for build a nuclear reactor that's going to suck down the water and then use cooling towers that are going to suck down the water as well. We're talking 500 million gallons of water as, for consumption. I myself, I live out. Every water that I have, from my bathing water to my drinking water, comes from a well, and that's 160 foot deep and it's 25 feet over the well. If these farmers around here start pulling too hard, I have sand that comes up in my well. It's not to say that I don't want them to water, but we can't have something coming in like this, and that's why I feel like there's another generator that we need to put on there. It's an atmospheric water generator. Some of these can produce up to 250,000 gallons. And that's something that we need to really look at. As far as subsidies go, where's the money going to come from? We're already in debt. So I think that we're going to have to figure something out with that. If I get to Washington, D.C., this is definitely one of my top priorities, is to make sure that we're staying aligned with America's spending values. No more sending transgender research for frogs in Indonesia and wherever else they sent all this other money in the previous administration. But making sure that we have a good plan, a solid plan, that's going to get us in with new ideas that are coming out. And a lot of the farmers across my region, they're not in support of this. And, I have to agree with them until we get a solution on the energy and the water.
Okay. I think it's a fair assessment that you're making here. Speaking of the farmers, let's talk about your concerns with farming and the farm bills that are, in progress. You've got a position on it on your website, Farm and Ranch.
Absolutely.
Walk us through here. What are your concerns right now? And how do you stand with the farmers?
Well, everybody's been talking about this farm bill. Some of the guys that I'm, running against in this race, they think that this farm bill is great. They're looking at 10 to 20% of this farm bill being used for key commodities. I don't see it for the farmers in the district that I want to represent, because 76% of that's going towards SNAP, towards all these other, programs that are out there. And yet all we're seeing is support for major ag. You will never see one of my signs out in front of somewhere until these, several issues I'm about to talk about are put into the farm bill. One is the right to work. Since when does a farmer not have the right to work on something that they own? They're trying to create these patents and these technologies to where the farmer cannot work on their own stuff. And I don't know if you guys have seen the price of some of these new combines. They can, exceed $1 million. And farmers,
Yeah.
They've got to save money every single way that they can, all the way across. So putting that in is one of them. And then a big, big, big part of this farm bill that needs to be added is rural hospitals. We are losing hospitals here like crazy. And, farmers and ranchers in West Texas, it's fairly common that we have injuries that, I don't know if you've ever met anybody that got their hand run up in a swather, but most of that hand's not there anymore. And if we don't have a hospital,
my husband's father, same thing. Yeah, he lost some fingers. Yeah.
And and that's it's time to stop putting temporary band-aids on something that requires surgery. They can always talk about, oh, well, we're looking at, we're trying to mitigate ongoing market volatility from tariffs and foreign competition, hitting cotton and beef hard in our export dependent districts. Yes, that's a true statement. But what are we doing with our surplus, and what kind of, how are we going to compete with other markets whenever we have companies that are coming in and they're charging our American farmers, $495 for a bag of cottonseed? And then straight across the border, they'll go into Brazil and Argentina and Venezuela and sell them that exact same product for like $100. Not to mention the fact that their tractors don't have DEF in them. They don't have any of the restrictions for the right to work because their government said no. Right. And yet our farmers, our ranchers are the ones that are always becoming the test product with these technology fees and everything. I thought the point of being in business was to put out the most successful product against your competitors. And if they can't do that, why are we bailing them out?
It's such a great question. We battled that down here in Florida. We had a big battle down here in Florida about glyphosate, and I see Don Hill is talking about it, but we pushed back so hard in Florida. We got them to take out this piece in our legislation that was going to allow, first of all, they weren't shutting us up by saying you can't say something. What they were saying is if we were going to talk out against big ag, that big ag had a reason to sue us into an oblivion. So that's basically censorship through lawfare, right? I mean, it's the same thing. I can't fund a lawsuit if big ag attacks me because I said glyphosate causes cancer. I mean, I'll go underneath. I mean, I'll be buried. But
Well, maybe that's
while
why
we got
I'm the
that
right
taken,
person for this district,
pardon
because
me?
half a zero is still zero.
Well, there
Well,
you go. So, but at the end, we got it taken out. So that was a win for us in Florida. But then we see this bill coming out of DC about glyphosate, and Dawn Hill she's aggravated about it. She's on Facebook. She says, "Stop using glyphosate." Yeah, no kidding. We don't want that stuff in our food, especially when you've got alternatives out there. But they're putting the pressure on the states now to say the states can't say boo about it. So essentially, they got what they wanted. They got us to shut up, and now they're punishing the states, which to me that's an infringement on my right to pursue my life, my liberty, and my happiness. So I think that
right.
executive order is a bunch of BS, and it needs to be challenged all the way to the Supreme Court and removed. And they can't tell the states what to do. We have 10th
And
Amendment immunity and sovereignty.
I would join in that fight as well, because I also disagree with it. You cannot have protections for a company that is producing a product that is hurting people. And this is another issue
That's
that
right.
I have with the Farm Bill, because non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and cancer, when you look at somebody like Bayer and Monsanto, one of them is producing glyphosate and the other one produces cancer drugs. They're creating the problem and fixing the solution. And that to me
That's
seems
right.
to be the most wrong aspect about this, because we're not talking about an industry that's growing. We're talking about an industry that is depleting itself at a rapid rate. We're losing like 20,000 farms every single time that we turn around. And these are small family farms. It's not the big stuff that
That's
they
right.
lease everything out. That's why
That's
it's
right.
important to me. These people are suffering, and they're my friends and neighbors, and I hate it, and I'll fight it every which way that I absolutely can. We need to get it. I think that it can be that there's alternative products. I think glyphosate's had its run, but I do believe that there are some new ways and new technologies that we could implement with this and
Okay.
see if we can make a change.
I've seen some of those, the machines that go out there and they're zapping weeds using lasers and
Oh yeah,
just
the
zap, zap.
lasers. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I saw some statistics that it would save the federal government if they were to fund that versus glyphosate, and putting these subsidies in, it would save billions and billions of dollars as opposed to getting behind big ag. I don't know. The numbers were staggering. I was looking at some stuff. I don't remember them in detail, but it just shows you that the federal government needs to get out of the way, and these agencies are absolutely they're an abomination. They're totally corrupt. They have nothing to do with our Constitution. They're not protecting we the people. They're protecting the industry that they're supposedly regulating. It's just wordsmithing to me. But
Yeah.
you talked about people losing fingers and healthcare and so forth. Let's talk about the healthcare piece of your issues. This is going to be a big one in your community for the reasons you stated. Talk to us about what you're going to do for Texans and healthcare.
So one of the things that I want to do is I want to break up some of these monopolies that are out there. There's multiple different aspects, but I'll focus, specifically on rural healthcare as opposed to, like Medicaid, Medicare, and then, some portions of Social Security that tie off into that. So if we're looking at the rural hospitals, one, we have to have an infrastructure that makes people want to work there. We have to be able to
Right.
get them money in order to get good doctors and nurses in. I have not met a bad doctor or a bad nurse at a rural hospital. You know why? Because they love it, and that's the reason why they stay. They're very passionate about what they do. But the problem is that most of these hospitals, they're not able to handle some of the larger procedures that need to be done. They do operate more like an urgent care. So with that being said, we have to focus entirely on getting these people some more money. And the way that we do that is medical transparency. Every single hospital across the country should have to post a cash price and honor it. And this will create competition, because then you're going to be able to see who's going where, what services do they provide, and how much is it going to cost me. And that favors the American people. All of this secrecy that comes behind the medical field, I don't understand it, because the only people that win are the major institutions that are involved in Medicare, or sorry,
That's
not
right.
Medicare, but in medical care.
Medical, yeah.
And we have to break that up. Right now in Abilene, Texas, there's one provider, one. So not only do they get the referral, but they also get the procedure, and then they get the aftercare. And they get to charge pretty much whatever they want to, because people don't have an option inside of their in-network coverage. And we need to break all of that up too. And another way that I think that we can get some more money into this, I'm proud to be endorsed by Veterans for America First. I consider it to be the honor of my life. I never served, and the fact that they would endorse me over other candidates who did serve says something about this race. But
That's right.
We need to get our troops, our veterans, insurance cards and allow them to get health care in the civilian world. I believe that there are thousands and thousands of great employees that work for the VA, but I believe that there is a lot that needs to be fixed there. And whenever we look at the care that they can get in the civilian world, that's going to start spreading out that money. And that's one of the things that I'm for. And I'm also for, the Major Richard Starr Act. I'm in 100% behind this. I will definitely be going all in on that. Because why are our veterans having to choose between their retirement benefits and their disability? That doesn't make any sense to me. It's one or the other right now. And I'm sorry, but these men and women didn't ask a single question about the water they were drinking, the air they were breathing, who they were shooting at, or what was going on around them whenever stuff happened that the United States military had to rise up in all of its glory and go in and take somebody out or infiltrate a region. Why are we not giving them both? Why are we absolutely putting a hard stop to things that they have earned? That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. I have no acknowledgement of why the federal government would do something like that, and I'm absolutely against it.
Well, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because if I'm a veteran and I'm listening to you right now in the great state of Texas, which I lived for 8 years and I loved every minute of it, I'd be running to the polls now because early voting has begun, and you all, your election is on Tuesday. This is the primary, and you've got to get over the finish line and make it to November. You've got some great candidates. I interviewed Paul Bongard today. Obviously, Doc Pete Chambers is running down there.
Doc, and I endorse Doc. I think he's the answer for Texas.
There you go. I couldn't agree more. I'm toying with the idea of, trying to get on a plane and fly out Tuesday just to be there for y'all's primary, because, Texas is a big state. As I said earlier, you guys are the 8th largest economy in the world. And if Texas goes down, America's going with it. It's a big deal. We cannot lose Texas. And you guys are really canary in the coal mine right now. It's really a canary in the coal mine, with Florida being probably right behind you. And California's done. So I don't know how we're going to save that state.
And up until yesterday in Texas, Democrats were outvoting Republicans 2-1. It finally, the curve finally hit back, but that's scary. And we got to fix it. Get to the polls, go vote, take 20 people with you.
Well, I think from where I'm sitting, and I'll ask you, why do you think the Republicans have sort of been seemingly sitting this one out? And it's because, social media, we're pushing so hard right now to get Texans to get out and vote. I think we finally pushed enough and helped people see the light of day with some of the recent reporting, particularly on all these mosques in your state. Maybe people weren't even aware of that. But, why do you think Texans and Republicans in general seem so apathetic right now?
I think it's because everybody has political fatigue. I really think that's what it is. We came out of 4 years of the worst, administration that we could possibly do, the most weak, ineffective, insecure, ungodly administration that we've ever seen. And I think that the church needs to get out and vote. So I'm a very, very strong Christian believer. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe that he rose again on the 3rd day for my sins, and that it's a choice. You have to choose him in order to receive that forgiveness from him. But the thing is that we've got 12% of the ecclesia, the body of Christ, that's going out to vote. And that's an issue. If every single person across the United States got out and voted their faith, we would take back this country in such a fashion that we would finally be able to live under the blessings that the Father has for us. When we choose to repent and walk away and take back, God will heal our land, and he will restore us to where we're supposed to be, and we can live under those protections. The Bible, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, those books were written for men and women who believe in God and will honor what that has to say. And we see this from our founding fathers in the way that they talked about it. The oath that a man takes is sworn to God. It's sworn to the Father. And if somebody doesn't believe or doesn't uphold those values, that oath means nothing in the United States of America. And I believe that it's time that we start electing people into office that, and who are going to stand up for this country like President Trump has done to restore this nation. And we're going to do it with the help of God above and live under his blessing.
Well, that's a beautiful, beautiful, almost a homily in a way. Kind of reminds me of something you might hear in church, if actually churches could get their heads out of their what's at some point and get back to being there to serve. I I want to bring up one last thing because, we saw the men's hockey team yesterday show up in the State of the Union. The women took gold 3 days before the men. We've really come through a really difficult time as we've been indoctrinated. Our education systems have been indoctrinated with this woke DEI ideology. And I find it really interesting. And you're the first person I've seen on our website put this up, but you actually take a position on women's sports. Tell us what that position is.
That position is that women belongs in women's sports. Testicular injuries increased almost 1,000% after Biden made it to where men could compete in women's sports. And I think that that's just criminal. We have to protect women across all scale. American women, the beautiful women of this country, we have got to protect them from these sickos that are trying to come in, because it's not just a matter of acceptance. You cannot do this. This is a mental disorder across the United States. Everywhere that they're allowed to go, there's some type of crime or something that goes along with it. And not to mention, it's wrong. That's what it is. It's wrong. Marriage was made between a man and a woman. Why are men trying to go into these spaces? Is because they're trying to take advantage of somebody. Somewhere along the line, somebody didn't tell them what you're doing is wrong. And we have to step up to that. And it takes hardcore people just to stand up and make those statements today. You don't see this from a lot of people. Everybody's preaching acceptance. We can't have acceptance in this country from the alphabet people that come all the way across this border and everything else and try to ruin all of the things that we have. Marriage and the family is the most critical part of God's plan, because the family is what drives this country.
Yeah.
End of story.
I agree. I agree with you. I think it's the right disposition to have. I have to tell you something, Ryan. Having known your dad now for quite some time and talked with him, sometimes we had some late night phone calls about a lot of stuff. He's a very passionate individual, and I see where you get your passion from. You're very articulate on a broad, range of subjects. When did you decide that you really had a love for politics? Was it something you just sort of grew into after you decided you had to run, or did you always sort of have an appreciation for it and decide you thought you could fix the system if you ever got on the inside?
No, I never had an appreciation for politics, because there's only, I'm not a politician. I never have been. The only thing that, I did wrong on J6 was be at a building at the wrong time. I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
I never went inside. I never assaulted anybody. I never broke anything. I was protecting police officers on the East Porch. And then my government decided that it was going to come after me. And for me, for my house, for where we serve, the reason that I'm involved in this is because I'm fighting for my children. My wife and I, we had 2 children, 2 miscarriages during the time of going through all the persecution that I went through. I was beaten, I was tortured, I was poisoned, and they tried to murder me by putting raw chicken inside of my water line when I was at Washington, D.C. And when I went to my elected official, Jody Arrington, and started calling offices all across the country, I called every public office that was voted in the United States of America, and there were 2 men that answered that call, Dustin Burrows and former Congressman George Santos. And they went after George the same way that they went after me. Now, I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that happened in that, but when no one was coming for me, I asked God, send me. I asked him, if nobody's willing to stand up and say the hard things, I will. I wouldn't take a plea deal. I was looking at 30 years in prison. I didn't bow down to the federal government when they tried to label me as a white Christian nationalist terrorist, and I won't do it now. I'll never bow down to anybody but the Lord God, Jesus Christ, because that is the only thing. Knowledge begins with the fear of God, and it's time that we get a little more fear in our lives regarding him.
Well, I agree with you. It is time we bring God back into the conversation. And for those that aren't clear on the First Amendment, it's our right to worship the religion we choose here in this country. Yes. But when you have Sharia law, which is really a blend of politics and religion, it is not. It does not comport with what we believe as our founding fathers scribed 250 years ago. And so it is important to have God in the conversation, and the government doesn't have a say in whether or not you choose to believe in God or not. And the government sure as heck should be defending our right to protect ourselves from something coming in that's disguising itself as only religion. In fact, it's not. Ryan Zink, I'm going to give you the floor. I want you to tell your Texas constituents there in Texas 19 why they should vote for you and what they can expect. And you give your political stump. It's all yours.
Well, the one thing that I would say is that in my district, I don't feel like I have constituents. I'm one of you. I work in the oil field. You know, sometimes our bills, they get tight over here. I believe I'm a traditional marriage. My wife's a stay-at-home mother. We've got our second kid on the way now. Thank you, Lord, for his blessings. America's not what it used to be. And we got to fight to get back to the point to where common sense takes the realm of all of the stupidity that has been spread out over the last 4 years and even further back. For me, running for office is more than just running for office, because it's the only opportunity that we're going to have to set back the gates of hell so that people who are lost can come in and find the Lord. For me, in my campaign, I ran because the blood of my children cries out to me, because they were taken from me far too soon. And now I have my two beautiful girls. I have to leave them something. And that's why I'm fighting, because I do believe that if we don't stand up right now, if the church and God-fearing families don't stand up, we're going to lose this country. And we're going to lose it in a bad way. And it's going to hurt every single second. It's going to hurt in the wallet. It's going to hurt at our house. It's going to hurt our jobs. It's going to hurt our children's future. Every single aspect of what we're doing, we have to stand now. I mean, we have the votes in the House and the Senate, and we can't even get anything done.
That's right.
We have to go up, and we have to put out common sense, and we have to do it with biblical guidance, and we have to live and abide by the three books that govern this land: the Bible, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. If you can get along behind that, and you want somebody who manages fiscal responsibility and who's really stood up to face the giants in Washington, D.C., I faced the entire weight of the federal government for 4 years and came out victorious on the other side, despite all of the torture. And I still want to fight for you. I still want to get in this fight, and I want to help our country win again. Then you vote for me.
Ryan Zink, you've got my full support. I endorse you for Congress. I'm starting to see more and more people rise up like you that want to be true public servants, servant leaders with a servant heart. And it's really refreshing, and it's restoring my faith in humanity. It's restoring my faith in the fact that perhaps we actually can save this country, because I just see us going over the cliff. And, if it's not for people like you getting into this fight, and despite the headwinds you suffered for 4 years under the weight of the DOJ and in a sick regime, I don't think you could survive what you're about to go into, because you've already beat the beast once. Now you're going to go in and tame it. You've already beat the beast once. Now you're going to tame it.
That's the plan. That's the plan.
That's the plan.
I hope that we can get it done, but there's a lot of fight still left in me.
Well, I think you're going to find your running mates and the folks that are fighters like you in there. And hopefully Texas is going to produce a lot of folks like yourself in this next election cycle. Hopefully we'll clean a little bit out of Texas, and with Doc Pete in Texas, then we can, start to focus on making sure Texas is safe, because it's really about the governors too. We've got to protect our states. So thank you, Ryan Zink, for joining me tonight. Thank you for all that you do. You had a fantastic interview on Tucker Carlson. I highly recommend people head on over to your website and check that out. It is ryanzink.vote. Ryanzink.vote. His address to his website is running on the ticker below. So check that out. It's also in the description box if you're watching this on Rumble. And Ryan, thank you so much. God bless you. Please give my best to your dad. He's a remarkable man.
I will. He's here. He flew out to help for this week, so I'll be sure to tell him tonight.
All right. That's wonderful. Give him a hug from me, and God bless you. Thank you for everything. And also thank your wife too, because, it takes a lot. You all have been through a lot, a couple of miscarriages, which is just a tragedy of in itself. And I don't want to dwell on that, because that's, it's a really difficult subject, but you keep going. And this is what America needs. We need to see people like you that are just going to keep going despite no matter what happens. So God bless you. And by the way, Dawn Hill wants you to know, the Revolution Blueprint's in here. That's Rob. Hey, Rob. He says, I love this guy. Send me. I know Rob. And Rob, I will connect you to Ryan after the show. I'm going to do a text connection. This is a great guy, Ryan. You're going to like him a lot. He wrote a book called The Revolution Blueprint. I think it's going to really resonate with you. And Don Spain Hill says, I'm up in the Panhandle here in Texas, and would be definitely voting for you, Ryan. So she would be if she's in your, I don't know if she's in Texas 19 or not. So.
Well, I'm from the Panhandle. I live here now. I grew up in Border, and I love the Panhandle of Texas.
Well, Dawn, please do us a solid. Share this out all over your friends, all over Facebook, since I know you're on Facebook. And, make sure that people know who Ryan Zink is. Okay. Make sure we need to get everybody take a minute and share this show out no matter what you're watching it on. And if you have friends in the Panhandle in Texas, in the Texas 19th District, even if you don't, send it to those people because every little bit helps. We just got to get the word out. God bless you, Ryan. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you for having me on, Ann. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anytime, anytime. Well, folks, I mean, it's not every day you get to meet people like that. I get blessed because of the job I do. I get the opportunity to meet a lot of great people, but I have got to say what's going on in Texas is really, really important. And it's really exciting for me because I'm starting to see the real people, not people who want to be politicians for life. None of these people need this job. They need it like a hole in the head, frankly, but they're willing to step in and serve you. And that is so refreshing. I just, I pray for people like Ryan Zink that they make it through. Doc Pete Chambers, Paul Bongard. We need these people to make it through in Texas. It's critical. So that's my conversation with Ryan Zink. If you saw this, you liked it, share it to anybody that you know is up in the Panhandle in Texas. Let's get that boy over the finish line. And thanks for watching, because as this election cycle heats up in Texas 19th District, we're going to continue to bring you any insights from the candidates that are on the issues that matter the most to you. Texas, I am with you. My heart is with you. Remember, your Republican primary is March 3rd, and every voice counts. So share this out. I'm Ann Vandersteel. Please stay informed, stay involved, and I will see you next time. Good night, everybody.